Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on a Yorkshire tragedy, and today we get to hear from Husband in scene 4. Now remember, Husband is a drunk, he's a philanderer, he's a gambler, he doesn't like his wife very much. He had actually sent her because he has gambled away all of their money and all of their lands. He had sent her to London to sell off her dowry lands, but instead of doing that, she came back with a job offer for him, which he didn't like because he doesn't want to have to be the sort of person who works for a living. So he threatened to kill her at that point, but a servant came in and was like, what? And he's like, what? I'm not allowed to look at my dagger? And the servant's like, there's somebody here from the university. So he has gone to speak to this person from the university. Meanwhile, the wife shared with us at the end of scene 3 yesterday that she is terrified by this whole situation and doesn't know how to get out of it. So in scene 4, the servant brings in like the master of the university who is there to see Husband, and Husband is like, oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see ya. And the master of the university is like, you're a deadbeat. And because you're a deadbeat and because you owe so much money, we've thrown your brother in jail. And the husband is like, what? And the master of universities just keeps going on and on about what a terrible person Husband is and how much he owes and what a blight on society it is that his brother is having to pay the price for this, because he's like, your brother could have saved lives, he could have done this, he could have done that, but instead he's rotting in jail because you can't get your life together and all this sort of stuff. And the husband is a bit taken aback and a bit awed by it and asks for a moment so that he can think about what the proper response to this is. And he's like, please go walk around our grounds while I think about this. And the master of the university is like, yes, I'll go do that. And I hope that you have a reasonable solution to this situation by the time that I come back. And once he and the servant are gone, the husband says, O thou confused man, thy pleasant sins have undone thee. Thy damnation has beggared thee, that heaven should say we must not sin, and yet made women, gives our senses way to find pleasure, which, being found, confounds us. Why should we know those things so much misuse us? Oh, would virtue had been forbidden, we should then have proved all virtuous, for 'tis our blood to love what we are forbidden. What man would have been forbidden? What man would have been fool to a beast and zany to a swine, to show tricks in the mire? What is there in 3 dice to make a man draw thrice 3,000 acres into the compass of a little round table, and with the gentleman's palsy in the hand shake out his posterity? Thieves or beggars. 'Tis done. I have known in faith terrible, horrible misery. How well was I left? Very, very well. My lands showed like a full moon about me, but now the moon's in the last quarter, waning. And I am mad to think that moon was mine. Mine and my father's, and my forefathers, generations. Down goes the house of us. Down it sinks. Now is the name a beggar. Begs in me that name which hundreds of years has made this shire famous. In me and my posterity runs out. In my seed 5 are made miserable besides myself. My riot is now my brother's jailer, my wife's sighing, my 3 boys' penury, and mine own confusion. Why sit my hairs upon my cursed head? Will not this poison scatter them? O my brothers, in execution, among devils that stretch him and make him give, and I in want, not able for to live, nor to redeem him. Divines and dying men may talk of hell, but in my heart her several torments dwell. Slavery and misery, who in this case would not take up money upon his soul? pawn his salvation, live at interest. I that did ever in abundance dwell, for me to want exceeds the throes of hell. So it finally hit him that the way that he's living his life is bad and harmful to those around him. The fact that he wanted to kill his wife wasn't enough to like shock him into things, but the fact that his brother is now in jail has woken him up to the fact that he has lost everything that was left to him by the generations and generations of family members that came before. And it sends him into a depression, as it probably rightfully should. I mean, he lost everything. And then he realizes that because he lost everything, and because he does a little bit of blaming it all on temptation. He says, why did heaven create women if we're not supposed to be with women? Sort of a thing. And he wishes that being virtuous was the sin, because then everybody would be virtuous, because people just have this propensity to sin, is the position that he's taking. So he's not taking full responsibility. It's sort of one of those, it was out of my control. I had to do all that drinking and carousing and gambling. But then he realizes that, yes, he lost everything that his family had. And because of that, his brother is in jail, his wife is upset, and his 3 children are likely going to starve. So he spends the second piece of the monologue just sort of dwelling in that sadness, in that depression, and not quite knowing what to do about it. He thinks that he's now the most miserable person on earth, and how sad it is for him to have to experience this, because he was left with so much. He inherited a lot, and for him to have fallen as far as he has fallen, he's like, that's as bad as it can possibly get. And at that point, his eldest son, who's still just a kid, comes in and is like, Daddy, I'm trying to play with my toy, but you're taking up all the space with your great big feet. And he takes the son and pulls out a dagger and stabs the son. And the son is like, what? Ah, this hurts. And he was like, I would rather that you be dead than be a beggar. And he stabs him again. And he's like, let's go find your other brothers. And that's the end of scene 4. So, whoa, my goodness, we said that we needed to get some tragedy in this play, and it all gets sparked by a brother getting thrown in jail. Just sort of the general state of things wasn't quite enough to do it, but once he learns that his brother is in jail, that sends him off the deep end, and he starts murdering his children. Well, the eldest son I don't think is totally dead yet, but that's the conclusion that he comes to, is that his children would be better off dead as opposed to growing up to be beggars. So he's gonna take that into his own hands and make sure that happens. So kind of a lot. And that's scene 4. Tomorrow we're gonna be in scene 10. So we've got a lot of catch up that we need to do in between, and brace yourself. There's a lot coming. I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.